any wiggles out you need now?
I have no wiggles.
Okay.
I'm not two.
Okay. Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Crystal Case Studies. This is the podcast where we deep dive into crystal geology and mineral science. My name is Emily. I'm a geologist. I'm your host, and today we're going to be doing a Geology for Dummies episode, and our guest dummy for the day is my little sister, Sophie. Hello, Sophie.
Hello.
So,
I'm the local dummy for today.
So, would you, how much about geology would you say you know?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
No offence to you, but I know nothing.
Okay.
There's no shade to your knowledge.
No. Okay. None of it's ever rubbed off on you then? None of it's ever transferred over?
No.
Okay. Okay, so for this episode, Sophie has some questions that she wants to ask, and then also I asked on my Instagram story a few weeks ago if anybody had any dummy or beginner questions. They've actually come back with really quite advanced questions.
Yeah.
I feel like Geology for Dummies was not.
This was geology for intermediates.
Yeah.
My questions were more geology for absolute know-nothings.
Yeah. So shall we get right into it?
Let's.
Okay.
This is one from a follower.
Okay.
So again, more advanced than anything my brain can come up with. But this follower asked, where does magma come from?
Okay, that is a brilliant one. Okay, so magma is molten rock, right? So lava is magma, which is above the Earth's surface, like it's been erupted.
But what's the difference between lava and magma?
Nothing other than whether it's above or below the Earth's surface.
So if it's below the Earth's surface,
it's magma.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and magma comes from essentially at the mantle of the Earth. So the layer of the Earth, the big massive layer of the Earth, which basically extends from just underneath the crust all the way down to the core of the Earth.
Which is deep.
Yeah, really deep. Really, really, I can't remember the figure, but thousands of kilometres deep,
okay.
Right?
So Journey to the Centre of the Earth, the film,
is not real.
But they're going a long way then. They're going through.
Yeah. I mean, they don't actually go to the centre of the Earth.
That's misleading.
No, that's very
true. It must be hot in there
as
well.
I mean, the deepest we've managed to go is 40,230 feet deep, which is really, 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 that's really deep. Taller than Everest.
Wow.
Yeah, right, deep. Okay. Yeah, so the mantle is some areas of the mantle are molten and some areas are much more solid. So the deeper you go, the more solid it gets because it's under the pressure of the Earth. So the pressure obviously increases unbelievably the deeper and deeper you get into the Earth. And the very uppermost layer of the mantle is called the asthenosphere. So geologists call it the asthenosphere. That is the most fluid layer of the mantle. So the crust, the Earth's crust, so our tectonic plates sit on top of the asthenosphere, and the asthenosphere moving is what they think drives tectonic plate movement.
Okay.
So the asthenosphere has the mantle as a whole has convection currents running through it. So hot mantle rises, the mantle that's been in contact with the Earth's core, right, that's been around the Earth's core, it's get the hottest, that rises, and then it touches the underside of the crust, moves along a bit, and then it sinks again as it cools down. So you get these convection cells, if you've ever seen a Dyson advert, so for
I have.
yeah, and within the room's warming up. That's what's happening underneath the Earth's crust, right? So magma is this molten rock, and magma comes up through the Earth's crust when there's crustal thinning, and the magma can come up through, or there's volcanoes, or a divergent plate boundary. So as the plates are moving apart, there is magma coming up right in these little zones. Yeah, I hope I've explained that okay.
You have.
Okay, cool. Next question.
Well then, I think if we're touching on volcanoes, another follower asked, will Yellowstone erupt or is it dormant?
Okay.
So as a dummy, I've heard about this.
You've heard of Yellowstone?
Of the potential complete planet destruction if Yellowstone erupts. So
yeah.
What's happening with that?
Okay, so for those people who don't know, Yellowstone is a volcano in the USA. in Yellowstone National
My
Park.
pronouns are USA. Have you not heard that?
No!
And there's like an eagle goes,
Right. So yeah, it's in the USA. It is in Yellowstone National Park. That's what obviously the national park is named after. And essentially when people say like, oh, it's coming, like this eruption is coming, that's because you can generally, like volcanoes in general, have a certain pattern that they erupt to. So generally a volcano has like, if you look back historically through like geological time at its history of eruptions, it has erupted, you know, some volcanoes have erupted like every 200 years. Some of them have erupted every 5,000 years.
they
like
love
some
their
of them.
routines.
Exactly.
Stick to their routine.
Exactly. Like the rest of us, clearly. They love
Real.
They love our routines, right? So according to Yellowstone's like geologically historic pattern of eruptions, it's supposedly overdue by like 60,000 years or something, right? So in geology, 60,000 years is not that long of a time period. Like 60,000 years is the blink of an eye in geology, right? Because we talk about like millions and tens of millions and hundreds
As
of million
Brian
years.
Cox would say, millions.
Exactly, right? So yeah, technically it is overdue.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can remember learning about this, and I can remember seeing like my geology professor talking about the fact that it's very sensationalized, right? Because it's in the US, I think. Everyone's like, oh my god, it's gonna erupt, and
there's a New Yorker article called The Big One, and
yeah,
people like read that and freak out that they're all about to die.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I've seen diagrams of like what probably would actually happen, and it's very dependent on like how much ash it would produce and how like what the wind was doing on the day it erupted and things like that. So it's very, you know, like where the ash would, because I don't think people realise how many deaths happen because of ash fall.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, because people think of volcanic eruption, they think of like
just the red stuff.
Yeah, exactly. The lava, like pyroclastic flows, lava, like.
Oh yeah, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Yeah. Pyroclastic flows.
Yeah.
That's what I'm scared of. I go to sleep at night worrying about that.
Okay. Well, okay, I do.
Okay.
No, okay, fine, fair enough. Lava. I'll keep it simple then. Lava.
The red stuff, like I said.
Lava, yeah. People worry a lot about lava, but a lot of people die because of the ash after a volcanic eruption.
What,
so
like inhaling it, or it's really hot?
So what combination? So it depends where you are. So if you're nearby, if you're like not close enough for the lava to get you,
okay,
but you are close enough, because I mean ash can go like over an entire hemisphere of the earth, right, in varying degrees.
It's
okay,
big.
but it's like it's much more localized to the eruption. That you would have to worry about it in terms of like a life-threatening thing. But if you're very close, yes, it's hot. The ash is hot. Like that's the victims of Pompeii. They were
just
killed.
About to bring those
people up.
those dear old people up.
They were killed by the ash. They weren't killed by lava flows. Did
they turn to stone?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. They were like over time. No, actually, no. I think
like pose and then be.
No, they weren't posing, Sophie. They were like perishing horribly to their death. It's an awful way to go. We're not laughing at Pompeii.
No.
They were like, obviously the biological material over time will disappear, especially if it's been like scalded, like burnt to death, right? And then that will be infilled by rock, and ash, Okay. So those people died because of ash, right? So they weren't in the lava flows.
They didn't get burned alive. They got ashed alive. Exactly. And what they, like when they're excavating towns like that and villages like that, because there's another one, I can't remember what it's called. There's another one really close to Pompeii that people don't. Vesuvius?
I don't know. There's another town that was buried by the
Dante's Peak?
No, not Dante's Peak. So when they're excavating these towns, I can't remember what the name of the other one is. There's another one nearby. Right?
I believe it's Vesuvius.
Okay. They are excavating the ash away. So if that happened in the US today, hopefully we would be better equipped. We would have, there'd be like a warning system, things like that. Then
there are people monitoring the volcano all the time.
Exactly,
so you
which
can tell if it's gonna.
Evidently they weren't doing that in those days, right?
Julius Caesar.
No,
was not.
They didn't.
I don't think he was there.
No, I don't know. I have no idea. This is human history. This is not my area. So I mean, but like it depends. If the ash was, if there was loads of wind like in that region over Yellowstone and it carried the ash really far over America, like more people would be affected. Absolutely. Yeah. That you start when there's ash introduced into the atmosphere, you start having to worry about like volcanic winters and things like that, where essentially because there's ash in the atmosphere and the temperature decreases essentially because the ash in the atmosphere creates clouds. So it reduces the amount of sunlight that can get to Earth and get to the plants and everything. Temperature decreases, photosynthesis decreases, crops fail.
The apocalypse.
And no one's very happy. Like, this is not a good vibe. There was an eruption in Iceland in like the 1600s, I think, and that actually indirectly caused the French Revolution because the amount of ash. I don't think it was ash if it was Iceland. Maybe it was ash, maybe it was just the gas, right? Because gas also causes climate change without actually having any particulates in it. That caused the crops to fail in Central Europe. There was a famine. And
meanwhile, Marie Antoinette
eating her cake. Was eating cake, exactly. And everybody got pissed off. And then it was the French Revolution, right? And it was actually that one of the, like, obviously there's like loads of geopolitical, like, you know, historians have got loads to say it was, but that eruption, they really believe that the lucky eruption in Iceland was a contributing factor to the French Revolution. So essentially what I'm trying to say is it depends. Like, Yellowstone erupting would not be as bad as the you know, obviously they want to make like Hollywood movies, like hasn't The Rock been in a film about Yellowstone erupting? Or
was that Baywatch?
I don't know. No.
I haven't watched.
There's been a few disaster movies that are kind of mould into one for me. Like San Andreas. He was in San Andreas. That's another thing that's like way over like Hollywoodized, that they're like, the Golden Gate Bridge is gonna like snap in half and all this, and it's
What's Jake Gyllenhaal was in Day After Tomorrow?
I don't know. Yes, he was. That's The Day After Tomorrow.
That's a staple of secondary school, like last day of term film watching in geography. It's The Day After Tomorrow.
Well, exactly. That's another totally scientifically unrealistic film. But yeah, there we are. So Yellowstone is overdue, and I don't know. I suppose they don't really know if it will never erupt again, whether it's dormant or not.
I think they
probably do actually. I just don't know.
Maybe the people in Hollywood are like paying for it to not erupt, because like what would that do to them, you know?
Well, it's nowhere near Hollywood, as we've just looked at on a map.
But if this ash travels, I've read things saying it's going to destroy the whole of America.
I just don't believe that to be true, but maybe I'll live to be proven wrong. Maybe this will happen, and who knows. Next question.
So bringing it to basics, how do people know what dinosaurs look like?
Okay.
And I'm not just talking Jurassic Park, like the dinosaurs they have in there, like in the Natural History Museum. How do they know that that's what a dinosaur looked like?
Okay. So they know a bit about how dinosaurs looked, right? But they only know, it's only ever as good as the fossil record, right?
So they don't really know.
So they don't know 100%. Have you seen the meme about of a dinosaur with a bob?
I've seen the memes of the like medieval paintings of animals with like eyes and a mouth, like a human.
The cats with like the human faces. Yeah.
So like that, a dinosaur with a bob.
No, so the meme. Maybe it's only me who's seen it. Someone else will have seen it as well. But essentially, because hair isn't very often preserved in the fossil record,
so they could have had
bobs.
They could have blowouts. Highlights, lowlights.
Lowlights, ombre, balayage.
Shave a little patch. Skin fades.
They could have done, no, I'm joking. They don't, okay, so they were reptiles. So.
And today's reptiles
don't have hair.
If they did, ew.
Yeah, they don't know. But some dinosaurs were feathered, which they only found that out relatively recently.
And how did they work that out?
From fossils. So it only, like, your idea of what a dinosaur might look like is only as good as the best fossil of it that you have. And also our understanding of like morphology today, and like now obviously, if you look at like a pigeon skeleton and then you look at the outside of a pigeon.
They're very different.
Yeah, so, you know, they used to like, I don't know when this was, I think it was like, I don't know, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, they used to illustrate dinosaurs to have like big, massive, like fat bodies and like big throat sacs. They thought they had these like big throat...
Like a cockerel.
Yeah, sort of like that. Like, or like, I don't know, I think there are lizards that can like blow up their throats, aren't there? Yeah, exactly, like a big chin thing. They don't think they were as big as that anymore because they like wouldn't have been able to support their own weight, essentially. Like,
were they not muscular?
they were, but like,
did they go gym and eat chicken and rice?
No, they were. Yeah, so our like understanding of what a dinosaur actually looked like is only as good as the fossil record. So like, they probably, you know, we probably don't have the colours right for them. Like, people illustrate dinosaurs to be like muddy. You know, we think probably they will have been like dark, muddy grey things, because lizards now are, like reptiles now are. So, but you don't like know for a fact, right? And unless there has been by chance a fossil that has formed where those sorts of things are recorded. So colour can be fossilised. The fossil is not that colour. Like, it's not like you get, you know, like for, I don't know, like a red dinosaur. You don't get like a red fossil. But I don't know loads about this because I don't love dinosaurs. I'm not like a dinosaur nerd. So there are people who are, so there are people who know a lot more about dinosaurs than I do.
Probably 8-year-old boys could come in and school us.
On next week's expert interview.
The local child we bring in.
Yeah, exactly. They're fossilised in the fossil record. There is evidence of colour because there is like, you can see on like a molecular, tiny, like nano level, that like the shape of certain cells and stuff, which like indicate, I don't really understand exactly how it works, to be honest. People might be better informed looking at an expert somewhere online. But basically, no, we don't know exactly what dinosaurs look like. They used to put, I think it was a German thing, I can't remember exactly, but there are some they used to find dinosaur bones and just like stick them back together and be like, wow, look at it. And there's a really
it's like that big.
There's like a really funny example of like, they like didn't find any of the middle section of it and they just like stuck the head onto like the bottom portion, and it's just like one spine. Like lump. Yeah, and it's got this like massive long tail and then like sort of a dog-sized front.
Yeah.
And obviously that like, it's just because they hadn't found the rest of the fossil and they like didn't really understand what they were looking at. Okay. Yeah, so it's still very, it's science is very much open to update. Yeah. And I mean they discover incredible things every year. You know, there are amazing advances made. It is really interesting if you get into it, but yeah, they don't know exactly. They probably didn't have French bobs though.
Fuck ass Bob.
Probably not.
They didn't like show up to school the next day like,
no, I mean they probably
knew a haircut.
I don't think they had school.
What?
Because would any of us go to school if we didn't have to? Like they
so true.
Yeah.
But this brings me on to my next question. If dinosaurs have been here before, they came, they saw, they left.
Well, they died. Yeah.
Yeah. Could we ever get dinosaurs again?
No.
Why?
Because non-avian dinosaurs went extinct.
What's an avian?
So avian means flying, like ava, right? So
aviation.
So like aviation, exactly.
So the ones that couldn't fly, that is really sad. I've seen those like probably AI generated like videos of like dinosaurs.
Well, they're
like
not real.
Screaming because it's the Big Bang, and they're like and it's really sad.
I mean, they're not real. Obviously, they're AI generated. Have you seen that
clip it's from one of the newer Jurassic Parks? Jurassic World, and it's actually really sad. There's a volcano erupting and they're all like leaving the island, and then there's what's the dinosaur with the really long neck?
Like a brontosaurus.
Maybe. There's a brontosaurus and he doesn't make it onto the boat in time and he like screams.
What? Is that in a Jurassic Park film?
Yeah, it's actually really sad.
I've not seen that. Okay.
It's really sad.
Wow. Okay. What was the question? I can't remember.
Could dinosaurs ever come back?
So they went extinct, right? They went extinct because of the Chicxulub impact, which was a very large meteorite impact 66 million years ago, which struck just north of Mexico, just north of...
So there's that big hole?
Yeah, an impact crater, yeah. Just north of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, which is like widely confirmed, like widely agreed to have been the impact that killed the dinosaurs, right? Because it happened at the same time. It's big enough to have done it. You know, what else would it be, right? So all land-bound dinosaurs, so all non-flying, non-avian dinosaurs...
Flightless birds.
Went extinct. They weren't birds because they were non-avian. Right?
It's just
They're
a
reptiles.
term.
Okay. So because, like I've actually already mentioned, a volcanic winter, so it's called an impact winter in this instance, which basically means that loads of debris and muck and dirt and ash got thrown up into the atmosphere. The food chain collapsed essentially from that. So like the plants all failed, and then plant-eating dinosaurs, like plant-eating prey died, and that meant that the predators died, and the food chain essentially collapses, right?
Yeah.
What this was, the only reason like humans and all other mammals have evolved today is because dinosaurs got out of the way and gave us their habitats, right?
Thank you, dinos.
Yeah, exactly. So we can thank them for that, right? So after the dinosaurs, there was a short period of time after the impact where like large animals couldn't be supported by Earth, basically, because like the food chain wasn't adequate and there just wasn't enough. Yeah, famine, like bad times, all the animals are really small.
Bad vibes.
You can imagine really bad vibes. You can imagine like an Earth of like rat-sized animals and smaller, like really small, right? But this is when mammals had their prime. This was like the opportunity for mammals to go big, right? So all of these habitats are suddenly freed up, right? There's all like a whole part of the ecosystem and the food chain and like all this stuff has just gone away, like has been totally opened up to them.
So nothing's going to eat them?
Yeah, exactly. All the predators have died.
Okay.
So they're
safe.
They're safe, exactly. So
what era would you call that?
So this was...
I don't I don't mean geological era. I mean, like, I'm in my Pilates era. I'm in my, like, girl boss era. What era would you call that? Not...
I was going to say, this was the Paleogene era.
No. No.
Okay.
They're in that it's up for grabs era.
Yeah, like, thriving is the word I would use.
Life is what they make of it.
Diversification is the word I would use.
Okay.
Yeah. Diversifying. Yeah.
What era?
I was like, this is the Jurassic.
They're in their reputation era.
So they were all able to like rapidly diversify, and you know, they did actually try the avian dinosaurs that survived.
Tried to fly away.
They did fly away, like, and we have them today. Like our birds today are descendants of those. Birds are dinosaurs because they have an ancestor that was a dinosaur, right?
Wow.
So they did try and come back. There was something called a terror bird, like as in terror, as in like
as in terrorize,
as in terrifying, or a horror bird, something like that, in South America.
Bro,
before it was South America,
she got a beak.
It's like a 10-foot tall.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so that was a dinosaur. Because in South America, they're probably, like, it just happened to be before the South American continent joined up. Oh my God, it's awful. It's disgusting.
That's
yeah.
Awful. It's got a hooked nose for the audio listeners. It's
Google terror bird.
Terror bird, like literally, like terrorize, just terror bird.
Yeah. So
they're huge.
The terror birds were in South America before it was South America. Right, before
bad vibes. I'd hate to be there.
Well, honestly, same. Me too.
me too, girl.
Me too. Thank God we live when we do.
Yeah.
There won't have been, you know, they could like move in and evolve essentially, and
the terror birds?
And get the terror birds and get that big. Mm-hmm. But they didn't last very long, because then when like South America joined up with North America, a predator will have been introduced, and then the terror birds got wiped out essentially. And then it just didn't really work anywhere else on Earth. Like mammals were doing their thing. Mammals were becoming more and more diversified and like specialized for their habitats. Any resurgence attempt by an avian dinosaur just like didn't work. So they'd had their time. They had their time being at the top of the food chain, being, you know, really
prominent. They died off. Mammals took that opportunity, and here we are today, where we have, you know, I mean, we're like highly specialised mammals, and it's because of that.
Lovely.
There you are.
Just Googled what's the most dinosaur-like animal, and it says birds and crocodiles are considered the closest living relatives to dinosaurs.
There we are. So I don't really know. I don't know where crocodiles come into it. I don't know.
I mean, look at this girl.
That's disgusting. Yeah.
Oh, she's crouching.
What is? Yeah. Anyway,
I'm not sure what that is.
So next question, please, Sophie.
So you know how people keep finding dinosaur footprints? How have they so the dinosaur footprint was made a very long time ago. How
Correct.
did it not rain or something else walk on it to disturb it? Like, the stars literally have to align to mean that a dinosaur footprint lasts all this time. How are there so many?
So, I mean, if you think, there aren't really that many for how many dinosaur footprints were actually made. And yes, it literally is that the stars align, and essentially what needs to happen is that either that surface is then like, if it's in a desert or something, the footprints have been made in wet sand or in wet clay. That then dries up, it doesn't get wet again, and then it's covered over by another layer of sand and it's preserved. Right.
So a lot's got to happen. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, or you often get things preserved on beaches because there will be, or like it was a beach when it was preserved, right? Or like a mud, or like a lake bed or something. So we have like human footprints that have been, like very early human footprints that have been preserved in this way.
Maybe one of my footprints has been preserved. In millions of years.
This is his massive foot.
How wide is that foot? No human could have made that.
It was a man.
How petite was that foot?
It was a man.
It was a man, yeah.
Yeah, where essentially like the dinosaur walked across like a layer of mud or something, and then it's not rained, it's not gotten trodden on by something else, it's been covered over quickly with like another layer of mud, and then that imprint has been preserved in geological time, and then over time that's been lithified, and then it has also, like, there will be out there for every one dinosaur footprint that was preserved. So if you think for every 100 dinosaur footprints, I don't know, for every 1,000 dinosaur footprints, probably 2 were preserved. I don't know. If I've no idea what the statistic is, right? A tiny percentage will have been preserved. And then of all the dinosaur footprints that were actually preserved, we've only found a fraction of them. You know what I mean? There's so much rock under the ground. There's so many, like, if you think of all the rock faces and the beaches and stuff where the dinosaur footprints have been exposed, how many more hundreds of kilometres of, like, hidden cliff faces and, like, you know, each layer of rock, like, we found barely any of them. So it really is astounding when you actually do get one.
So does it literally look like an indentation of, like...
Have you never seen one?
No.
No,
I Google.
Yeah, true. It literally is like just a dinosaur footprint in rock, but obviously when the footprint was made, it wasn't rock, because otherwise it wouldn't write a footprint. It was into sand or mud, because rock is lithified sand or mud. Rock is like sand. Rock is sand or mud that has been compressed over very long periods of time and turned into rock. Yeah. There you are. But do you feel like you understand now?
Yeah, I guess. So you could just stumble across one on any day.
I mean, you could. You'd be very lucky. There are probably some places that are better. You're better
more
off
likely.
looking. Yeah. If there's like already footprints in an area, I'd say you're more likely to find. Because like not everywhere, not every. I've already mentioned like some areas are particularly good for preserving footprints and some aren't.
So if they have like really harsh weathers.
Yeah, exactly. Or like a riverbed where the river is constantly flowing over it and eroding, you're never going to get a footprint preserved in that environment. Yeah, it's much more likely to be like a lake, the shore of a lake or a beach or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question. What I've actually never learned, you know, there's a fossil.
Yeah.
A swirl.
An ammonite.
What is that? Who looked like that to make that? Is it a snake?
No.
I don't know.
No, it wasn't a snake. Really?
Is it poo?
That? No.
Have I made that up?
You've
What's the swirl?
It's like a prehistoric squid. So the cephalopods are the family of like squids and octopuses and other. It's molluscan class, right? So squid, octopus, cuttlefish, etc., etc. Right. So an ammonite. Look, there's a diagram, Soph. Look. So can you see that's the swirl, and then the squid it's kind of like a snail, but rather than a snail, it's a squid.
So what happened to it? Why did it... So it died on the floor of the ocean.
Well, I mean, it died and then it sank to the floor of the ocean.
And then it made one of that... And then
and then it was fossilised. No. So you find them in... It never washed up anywhere. It was just fossilised at the bottom of the sea. Mm-hmm. So the bottom of the sea actually is a really good...
place to
good place to be fossilised. You don't find them because we don't go and look at the bottom of the sea for fossils, but like what was once the bottom of the sea, now you are very likely to find fossils there.
I see a video, someone would like split open a rock and then inside it is the swirls.
So you're thinking of like the Yorkshire ammonite nodules, that's what you're thinking of.
I don't know if I am, but okay.
Yeah, well you are, I'm telling you.
But why is that the most, like, when I think of a fossil, why is it the snakes, like there's just this swirl?
Yeah.
Why is that what comes to mind? Surely there are other fossils.
I mean, yes.
That look like other things.
Yeah, there are loads of fossils, but I think, there's one on my shelf next to you now. That's a Madagascar ammonite.
That?
Yeah. I don't know.
Is that not like... Is this rude? Is that not a bit gross? Like something died in that?
Well, I don't know. Depends how your ethics lie. Depends where your ethics...
Well, I'm not saying it from an ethical point of view. I'm saying more from a bacterial point of view.
No,
is that disgusting?
It's millions of years ago. There is no bacteria. The bacteria is dead.
Okay.
And
you wouldn't lick it.
I mean, it would be safe. I'm not really doing much for the rumours that geologists lick rocks, am I? But like it would... You're not, like, fossils are too long ago for it to be bad for you. So if, like, it's not, they're not like rotting as you're looking at them. Like they've been and got, that's how they're fossilised. They've been turned into rock over millions of years.
So is it just that the swirly ones are just the most satisfying to look at? That's why that comes to mind.
Yeah, I think they're a bit of a poster child for fossils because I think, well, it's also like the Fibonacci sequence. People use them a lot in art. That swirl. And also you're from Yorkshire, so I think you just have seen a lot of them. Yeah.
I've never seen one in person, but can I ask the interstellar one?
Yes.
Okay. I think this is in my mind because I see a lot of interstellar TikToks, a lot of Matthew McConaughey sobbing. Not that I enjoy that. I'm not a Matthew McConaughey fan, but the one of him. Look, have you seen that video?
Yes.
And people put it next to clips like when someone grabs the last reduced eclair from the shelf. It's like Matthew McConaughey, like, okay. Yeah. Anyway, so in Interstellar, they're doing space exploration because Earth is gonna become uninhabitable. But like when they get to the planets that they want to explore, they're like, this is bad. Like 10 minutes on this planet is like 10 years on Earth, or even more difference. Is that accurate?
Sort of. So again, this is space. So this is not really geology, but I'll give you a good answer.
Again, an 8-year-old boy could probably come in.
An 8-year-old boy, honestly, there's an 8-year-old boy, out there who can give you a better answer.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's always the kind of way though. There's always an 8-year-old boy who knows more than you.
Real.
Somewhere. Yeah. So yeah, it's called time dilation, which is essentially where time is not the same everywhere. Time changes depending on like mass and gravity and how fast you're moving
But is that not just like, you can just choose not to answer this. Is that not just like decided by us? That's like socially constructed. What time it is.
No, so you're thinking of like clocks and like the fact it's 12 p.m.
So like, you're talking about like when the sun sets and rises, like a day could be shorter on different planets.
I mean like you would experience it as like days of your life and I would experience it as 10 minutes of my life. That's what it literally is like that.
So it literally feels different.
Yeah, literally, because time is relative to where you are. So in Interstellar, I think, I mean, it's been years since I watched this film.
It's quite a good film.
But it's quite long, though, and it's quite, like, emotional. So it's not really my type of film. Okay. But in Interstellar, yeah, so they go down onto that planet, and the guy who's still in orbit of the planet, he has...
What's he doing? I don't
7 years have passed. 7 years have passed.
I mean, he comes out and he's like all...
And he's really old. No, longer even. But it was only like 20 minutes for them. So they went down on the planet and landed. The waves are coming. And it's like, oh my God, get back on the ship.
That's quite stressful.
Get back on the ship. Really stressful. Because I've watched that scene quite recently on TikTok.
It's really stressful.
Yeah. But then they go back into, they like jet off, back off the planet, go back to the station. He's like, I waited for you. And it's like decades have gone past, right?
God.
Which that... Theoretically, yes, it does. That can happen, because if you were on a planet that it's to do with like, how big the planet is, like how fast it spins.
That actually makes me feel ill. The fact that he felt like he was waiting for literally 20 years.
Well, he was waiting for 20 years.
That feels not good.
Yeah. So I mean, like space and time will just like fuck your head up. That is just how it is.
Yeah. How does Doctor Who do it, honestly?
No, well, exactly, yeah. So, but that's probably the best answer I can give you for that question.
So, the thing, I saw a thing, I actually can't remember what it said, but that it maybe NASA or some space team, probably Elon Musk's SpaceX, I don't know, have heard a noise or something from a planet. Did you see that?
Yes. Yeah, they do. They hear things and they can't explain them.
Or like ASMR from planets. Do they hear that?
So, yeah, I think there's been like multiple instances where there's been noises picked up at listening stations and they don't know what they are. And they think actually it's the one that is springing to mind that I think you might be referring to.
It was recent.
Okay, maybe it's not that
like
one
a month ago.
Oh, okay, I'm not sure then. I was thinking of, there was one in like the 70s or something.
Oh, no.
Where they called it the wow signal, because the astronomer who was listening, who like picked it up and like wrote down on the records when it was recorded, it was so weird that he wrote wow next to it. So then like all the photocopies of it, it's
chills.
Called, like, that. You don't like that, do you? No. And they think actually it was I think they think it was a black hole or like a supernova or something. Okay. And it was like, and that sound had been travelling through space
for a long time.
Waiting
to be heard.
And then we just picked it up as it went past us. Yeah.
No, I literally saw something. I mean, probably actual lies. I probably saw it on TikTok. And it said
not real.
That NASA was exploring a sound that they'd heard from another planet.
Well, possibly they do hear things, but I don't know. It's never going to be as like, I mean, it's not aliens. Like, I don't think it's aliens.
It's not going to be an alien going, hello, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's not like...
Pick up.
It's not going to be like Star Trek, where they're like... Yeah,
no.
Exactly. Okay. There we are.
So, talking of other planets, are there crystals and minerals on other planets?
I love this question. It's another space
This is a follower question.
Yeah, good question.
You can tell because it's more intelligent.
I can tell because it's interesting.
Yeah, you can tell because she actually reacted well to it.
Yeah, there are rocks and possibly crystals on
Are they
planets.
better than Earth's? Are they like...
Well...
They're unmined.
I mean, that's a whole other
So they could
thing.
be like...
They could be massive.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so... There are, I mean, planets, are, like rocky planets are made of rocks. Hence why they're called rocky planets.
You're so smart.
Yeah. This is for dummies, all right. But like what I mean, the reason why I said that is because some planets made of gas, like the gas giants are. There is no.
Saturn and Jupiter
and Neptune are gassy.
Do they smell?
Probably. I think they're made of methane, which smells. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Nice.
So the planets which are rocky are made of rock.
Hold on. Can we just back to planets?
Okay.
So there are those, is it 7 or 11 planets that are like, when you learn new planets, those are planets you learn?
Yeah.
There are more than those, right?
What? Well, there are planets in other solar systems.
So that's those are the only ones in the solar system.
In our
solar system.
in the Earth solar system that orbits around our sun.
I thought there was just like a hierarchy between like what planet.
No. So there's like Pluto doesn't count as a planet because it's like it's like it's not even a moon, because moons have to orbit a planet.
Okay.
So it's not, it's orbiting the sun, so it's not a moon, because the sun is a star, which a lot of people don't know that either. Good. So yeah, I don't know. Pluto is like a subplanet or something, and they like declassified it as a planet, and it's all very sad for Pluto. Yeah. But yeah, so there are
planets that could have.
Yeah, so the rocky planet, so like Mars is made of largely igneous rocks. Yeah, so like basalt, and like there's granite on Mars, and granite's made of like quartz.
New kitchen.
Can you imagine your kitchen being made of?
Oh my god, yeah, that's gonna be coming soon on Architectural Digest in 5 years' time of like the next celebrity's
Elon
home.
Musk's
home, guys. This is Mars granite.
Yeah. Well,
I can imagine that.
I mean, I'll be watching. Yeah, so the moon is made, there are like areas of the moon that's made of basalt, which is a fine-grained volcanic rock from Earth. Like there's areas of, they think there's like olivine on the moon, which olivine in the crystal world is referred to as peridot or perido. That's a crystal. So yeah, there are rocks and crystals out there, but like the crystals that we sell on the crystal market in the, on Earth. I love that makes it sound like there's crystal markets on other planets.
Operated by aliens.
Yeah, exactly. The crystals that we have on our crystal markets are generally, like most of them are formed in like hydrothermal settings. So this is essentially where warm water or very, very hot water, I say warm water, like incredibly hot water, has filled up fractures in the Earth's crust, fractures in rock, and left minerals behind as it leaves again. Right. Okay. That's how amethyst is formed. Like there's fluids in.
It's water.
Yes, it's water. This is dependent on water, right? So, but I mean, there are some other crystals where we don't need water. So like pegmatites, so rose quartz doesn't need water to form.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is, for there to be hydrothermally deposited crystals on a planet, you would need water.
Okay.
You would need there to be water. So hence the hydro in hydrothermal, right? You would need there to be a source of heat and a source of water, which Earth is especially good at, right? So like the moon used to have plate tectonics, they think, or Mars used to have plate tectonics, but it's cooled down too much. So it's dead. It's geologically dead. That's called. Yeah, RIP. And it can't, like, it wouldn't be able to produce hydrothermal fluids anymore because it's too cool. So yeah, there are rocks and crystals out there. Okay. I'm sure there will be more discoveries on that.
Well, that kind of brings us on to another follow-up question. Someone asked, how does water get trapped in some stones?
Okay. So I think this follower is referring, really good question. I think this follower is referring to anhydrous or fluid inclusions, which I think the slightly more accepted term nowadays is fluid inclusion as opposed to anhydro, because anhydro, you're assuming that the fluid is water, which the fluid isn't always water.
What else?
So when like you get air bubbles in crystals, which when the crystal was forming, because it was under such intense heat and pressure, it could have been like liquid, like carbon dioxide or something, right? But obviously carbon dioxide, like
things that become a liquid once reaching a certain temperature.
Yeah, and pressure, right? So many crystals, I've already mentioned hydrothermal crystals, are built by liquids, so they need a fluid like to deposit them essentially. When the crystals are being built within the fluid, so essentially what happens is these fluids are very, very rich in minerals, insoluble. They've like dissolved loads of mineral ions. They are leaching mineral ions out of the rock around them. All of those atoms and molecules and ions are like floating around. Over time, like as the liquid cools and it reaches like a critical temperature or pressure, crystallization takes place, and the atoms and the molecules and the ions arrange themselves in a crystal lattice over millions of years in an organized repetitive structure, which is what a crystal lattice is, I'm sure many people will have heard of.
I haven't.
So okay, Sophie hasn't. So sometimes, particularly if a crystal is being built quite quickly. So you often get in hydros or fluid inclusions in skeletized crystals and in agates. So you get like anhydro agates, quite common. Agates form relatively quickly because they are microcrystalline, right? So they do not have particularly developed crystal structures. They are actually like, they have it's like lots of little grains of crystals rather than big individual crystals.
Like
okay,
the babies of the crystal.
Exactly. Which if something is, I think it is, because if something is crystallizing quite quickly, it's easier for a pocket of water to become trapped, right? Rather than if something is crystallizing very, very slowly, it's, you know, it's harder basically for a pocket to get trapped, and it's growing in a more ordered, organized way. That's what I'm going to say for that one.
Okay. So, onto a more dummy question, because I learnt or heard of this whilst watching the glorious Love Island. So, a contestant on Love Island, she was known for being more intelligent than some of the islanders. She said that if you take a big telescope on Earth and you look at Mars, I think it was Mars, that you would be able to see dinosaurs because of the speed of light.
Okay.
Obviously there aren't dinosaurs on Mars, but like if there were, however long it takes to see it a go, do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I think you've possibly got this the wrong way around.
So if you were on Mars?
If you were on Mars, exactly, and you were looking at Earth. So there...
I was thinking, are there dinosaurs on Mars?
I mean, to the best of our knowledge...
There weren't.
There have not been dinosaurs on Mars. But, you know, I'm always willing to be proved wrong.
But if you were on Mars...
If you're on Mars, like, light travels very, very fast, right? Very fast. Light travels very, very, very fast. But it still has to travel. It's not instantaneous, right? So... the light that was being emitted from our planet, I was going to say from our country then.
England!
The light that was being emitted from our planet, the dinosaurs got wiped out 66 million years ago. 67 million years ago, right before the dinosaurs died. Okay. That light has had to travel out from Earth.
And to some places it's still not reached.
And it's still not there. So if you were on those places, if you're on those planets, I don't know what blooming planets these are, like a long way away.
Far away one.
And you were looking back with a microscope, and your microscope is receiving the light that left Earth 67 million years ago because it's had to travel to get there. You'd look at dinosaurs, yeah.
So basically, if you were on a far enough away planet,
yes,
with a telescope,
big enough,
with a
telescope, not a microscope.
You said microscope.
Did I?
Yeah.
I meant telescope.
I was thinking. So if you were on a planet far enough away with a telescope, a big telescope,
yeah,
and looked at Earth, you'd see dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it would take like 67 million years for you to get back to it. I mean, if you're travelling at the speed of light, but we can't travel at the speed of light.
No, okay.
So, yeah. I mean, it'd be a pretty lonely existence out there, but yeah.
Yeah. What is the stuff that comes out of the back of planes? So, and why does it turn on and off? So sometimes you'll see a plane flying over. We're on like a plane route. We see a lot of planes. Some of them have this white...
You can't say that.
Some of the planes that are flying have a white trail of something coming out.
This is not geology. This is not geology.
It's just a question that I'd like answering. What's the white stuff that's coming out?
Water vapour. And I have no space for chemtrail conspiracy theories on this podcast.
Oh no, it's not that. I hadn't even thought of it like that.
It's water vapour. And whatever exhaust fumes a jet plane emits, like in the same way that
a car does.
A car does, yeah. So that's the fuel is being combusted, water vapour and gas is coming out the back of it. It condenses because, like, like right behind the plane there is no white trail, and then the white trail starts a bit farther away. Condenses because right behind the plane it's still too hot to condense, right? And then it condenses, it goes from being a gas to a liquid, like a steam, and it forms a cloud, essentially. But this is not geology.
No, just a question. In honour of Taylor Swift's first show back in Florida.
Yeah.
With the new Reputation bodysuit.
Yeah,
with gold snakes.
Yeah. I hadn't even seen that. I wouldn't have seen that if you hadn't showed me.
We obviously went to see Taylor Swift in June.
We did.
Best day ever. And afterwards, it was said that our show made like seismic movements so large that it was like an earthquake.
Yeah.
Specifically our show day, we had the biggest. To specific songs as well.
I love when we were there, like not just...
Are they trying to say something about us?
Those big feet.
Yeah. It's my footprints. To specific songs as well.
Yeah.
Love that.
It's really interesting this.
But could the Swifties, if we all banded together and moved in unison, could we make an earthquake?
Okay, so what you're referring to is the fact that after Edinburgh Night 1, which was our night, we were there, after Edinburgh Night 1 of the Taylor Swift 2024 Eras Tour.
Yeah. The European leg
of the Eras Tour. Okay. The British Geological Survey, BGS, as they are fondly referred to as
everyone talks about them.
As my LinkedIn likes to remind me, released a graph of the seismic activity that they had picked up at their Edinburgh seismic station, whatever you call it, right? Which is not unheard of. Other concerts, essentially people jumping up and down, generates seismic waves.
Well, I'm sure those football fans or rugby fans.
Yeah, exactly. So massive like sports games, they register on the like monitoring equipment. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's not really like a proper, like a real earthquake. So
but it generates similar motion.
It generates seismic velocity, which is not the same. The Groovy Geologist did a really good video of this. So at Groovy Geologist, Kate Larson on Instagram and TikTok did a really, really good video of this, which I enjoyed. So essentially she points out in that it's not the same as a real earthquake. It's not the same as like the Richter scale. Like, you know, when people say like a magnitude 7 or a magnitude 9, they're referring to the Richter scale, right? Mm-hmm. Which is a logarithmic way, like a scale that earthquakes can be measured on. Yeah. So like a magnitude 5 is like 10 times stronger than a magnitude 4, and a magnitude 6 is 10 times stronger than a magnitude 5. I think it's 10 times, rather than 100 times. So like it's exponential. So a magnitude 9 is like way more powerful than a magnitude 1, right? So they use seismic velocity to help work out an earthquake's magnitude, but it's not the same. Like, it's not the same thing. So yeah, it generated seismic velocity.
But could the seismic velocity it created generate like
a real earthquake?
Yeah.
So maybe if you had like all Swifties on Earth and you took them to a tectonic zone which was due an earthquake. So like I've literally already said that like volcanoes become like overdue, right? Yeah. Earthquakes do the same thing. So because tectonic like fault planes and the plates are always moving past each other or towards each other or away from each other, right? You can literally trace out there are like periodic earthquakes in geologic history, which is one of the ways they can predict earthquakes with, right? So they're like, oh, Japan's overdue for like a magnitude 9 earthquake, and like the longer and the more overdue it gets, the bigger the earthquake they think it'll be. Or like San Andreas is overdue for this earthquake, blah, blah. So okay, maybe if you took
all the Swifties,
all Swifties on Earth, that's a lot of Swifties. If you think every single stadium that was filled, all of those people,
like at least 70,000 people in every single stadium.
Yeah, I mean that would be bonkers. All those people and had them all jump up and down to Look What You Made Me Do.
This is like on Club Penguin when you want to flip the iceberg.
Yeah.
So and it's like everyone puts in the chat, everyone jumps, you all have to jump, and then if the iceberg gets full enough and everyone's jumping, then the iceberg flips, and then it becomes like a disco. It becomes something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe that would happen, and then we could have a Taylor Swift disco.
Woo.
But yeah,
that is also known as Swiftageddon.
Is this a thing?
Have you never been to a Swiftageddon?
No.
You and your girls need to go to a Swiftageddon.
Have you been to a Swiftageddon?
I've been to a Swiftageddon. But it's like Swiftageddon is like an organisation, and they go to different clubs in the UK and play exclusively Taylor Swift.
You've been to one of them?
I've been to one, yeah.
Where?
At university.
Oh my God. Wow.
And they go to like a lot of cities, so yeah, Swiftageddon is like the brand.
Right.
It's not just the Taylor Swift night, it's Swiftageddon.
I can't believe I've never heard of this.
But maybe Swiftageddon is also a phenomena that would occur if all Swifties united and jumped in unison. Swiftageddon would then happen.
I mean, yeah. So I can neither confirm nor deny. It might happen.
It might.
Also probably won't. I just feel like it.
Well, you never know, because so when Reputation Taylor's version does get announced, if all Swifties do start jumping on.
Well, exactly. So that was the thing with the Edinburgh one, was that they traced, like, they knew what time the concert started. Everybody knows the track list. They could like see when the peak, like the biggest seismic velocity was.
Yeah.
Ground velocity was, and it was when. Is it Look What You Made Me Do?
I don't know. I think it might have been Ready for It, because that's what she comes out to.
Yeah, Are You Ready for It? Which is not, again, in the Groovy Geologist video, she points out the fact that is not like a jumpy up and downy song.
Yeah.
It is a very like slow, like do do do. And as Swifties, we can only infer that it was because everybody in the stadium, including us, thought that she was about to announce Taylor's version. Yeah, which she didn't.
No.
And she still hasn't. No. So.
But now there's a gold bodysuit.
Yeah. So who only knows? There we are. Right. Next question.
Next. Another really dumb question.
Who's it from? You?
It's from me.
Okay.
Will we ever build so much on Earth and Earth gets so heavy with all the people and the buildings that Earth starts to like sag a bit inwards? Earth, like the actual ball of Earth, gets a bit smaller in its diameter?
Circumference. Or both, actually.
Or
but
all of it.
No.
Earth is strong.
Earth is strong. So I like your question, though. I actually do like your question because it does make sense.
Thank you.
So no, like we're not gonna. I mean, the Earth is dense. Like the Earth's crust is dense.
There's no room for it to sag.
Yeah, where would it go? Like, there's no like. It's not like Journey to the Centre of the Earth where we would like all like.
Where that man with the curtains is in there.
Is that the one that Dad doesn't like?
And Mum, I think.
And
what's his name?
I don't know. Do you remember the haircut thing?
No.
For my listeners, this is unrelated. Basically, the actor who's in
Journey to the Centre of the Earth.
He's also in
The Mummy.
He's also in The Mummy.
You'll know who he is with the curtains.
Yeah, with the curtains. Our dad was like really bitching about him essentially, and he was like, "I find him really annoying, and I hate his haircut." And he had the exact same haircut. And Mum, anyway. So, yeah, there's nowhere for us to go. We're not going to like fall into the Earth, but. You have kind of pointed out a very important part of engineering.
Oh, thank you.
Which is geotechnical engineering, which I briefly worked in, my listeners will know. Which is essentially you're making sure that if somebody builds a whopping great building, or even right through to like an extension or a heavy shed, if it's on really rubbish ground, like if the ground is literally like essentially glorified sludge. Yeah,
Jinx.
I don't know why we said that in the same way at the same time.
Yeah.
If the ground is essentially like glorified sludge, it's not stable. So if you load it, if you put the foundations down and you build this building on top, it will crack. It will deform essentially. So and like the walls will start to crack and
like that house.
Yes,
there was for those they don't know where we live, but there was a house which literally had like a landslide.
Yeah.
It's built on a hill itself, its own sort of little portion of this hill.
Yeah.
And it's the sort of front of it all started collapsing
and
fell into this road, and the road was shut for like 2 years.
Longer, like 4 years. Yeah.
And it's just reopened.
Yeah.
And it's which is very good for us because that was creating a lot of...
Very true, very true. But yes, so exactly. So like...
So that was built on bad foundations.
Probably not. It's probably like a combination of like too much water, like the walls not being repaired.
It was very rainy.
Yeah, so
it was because of rain, I think.
You get, I mean, this is no longer part of geotechnical engineering. I know it kind of is actually, I think. But when you get lots of rain, you often get like high walls giving way, like retaining walls and stuff, where they're retaining soil behind it, because the people think it's because of the weight. So the soil, like the load behind the wall, gets a lot heavier because it's full of water. That means that the wall collapses. It's actually to do with hydrostatic pressure. So because the sediment behind the wall becomes saturated, that means that the pore pressure increases and the particles of soil are pushed away from each other because the pore pressure is increasing, and then friction decreases.
So is that kind of what happened to our house?
Yes.
Yeah.
So... yes, we do need to make sure when we're building anything, we need to make sure that the ground is okay so that it doesn't like slip and slide. You get, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Yeah.
They didn't know, when they built that, they didn't know that they were putting a bloody great heavy marble tower.
Yeah.
And like half of it's built on mush, right? That's why it leans, is because one half is okay, the other half is on actual mush.
So is the Leaning Tower of Pisa just going to lean and lean until it falls?
No, so there's been like multiple... It used to be worse than it is now. They've actually corrected it slightly. So they had like
scoliosis surgery.
Exactly. It had that done.
It had scoliosis surgery.
I don't think you're allowed to shorten it like that.
No, people with scoliosis call it
Yeah, but you don't have scoliosis.
Scully sisters.
You don't stop.
No, sorry, my spine is fine.
My spine is fine.
My spine is fine, but I feel for you.
Anyway. Yeah, they've like righted it. So they've like, what did they do? I think they like pumped better sediment underneath it, and it like lowered the angle that it was leaning at. But yeah, and that happens all over the world. People build things and they bloody fall over afterwards because they haven't done proper ground investigations. Yeah. Okay. So, we're not gonna collapse.
The entire Earth, but
yeah,
buildings.
It's not gonna be like, one day it's like, the straw that broke the camel's back, someone builds another house and it's like we all
fell from space.
Yeah. It's not going to be like that. Next question.
So on the same sort of train, are we ever gonna... I know that some parts of the Earth are like uninhabitable, like parts of Russia, Antarctica, desert and whatever else. But so are we going to live out... Are we going to run out of space on Earth for humans to spread out horizontally? Are we going to get to a point in like a few hundred years' time where we all have to live in vertical buildings because we've run out of habitable Earth?
Can I say that the first time you submitted that question, you put 50 years. You didn't put...
In next year.
At Christmas.
At Christmas, is there going to be room? I think I submitted that question when I'd literally just woken up.
Okay, why?
That's my excuse.
Okay. No, I feel like, we already, like, depends where people want to live.
Also, we'll be dead from climate change by then anyway.
Probably. I don't know. We'll be on Mars. We'll be busy building, like, sky rises on
We'll be
Mars.
interstellaring out there. I'll be Matthew McConaughey.
I am not.
You be Timothy Chalamet.
No. Yeah, I'm going to stay on Earth and be in the film for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to space ever. No one, you couldn't pay me enough money.
Pay me money.
No.
Maybe you could.
No, you couldn't.
If it was the right amount.
No. How much is the right amount for you to go to space? 50 quid.
A tenner.
50 quid in a Starbucks.
50 quid in a matcha. And a blank street.
Right.
A blueberry matcha. Probably like £5 million.
No.
If I'd go up, but not forever. Because where would I spend my money?
Well, exactly. Like on Mars.
There isn't a Sephora on Mars.
In this like dystopian world where there's like only a McDonald's and and an H&M on Mars.
No.
Yeah.
No. I'd want to come back to Earth to spend my coin.
Okay, no, you couldn't pay me that to go to space. I just don't like it. I don't like it. I like Earth too much. I like being able to breathe outside too much and it not being like you've got to be in a pressurized, sealed container. That's just too much for me.
Okay. Did you just see there's that man and woman on the space station? They're not going to get to come down until after Christmas for some reason.
No, I didn't see that.
Maybe I'm on Space Talk.
Okay.
I'm not on Space Talk. The people on the International Space Station, they can't come back for a bit because something's happened. Something's gone wrong. I don't know.
Oh.
People are thinking, oh my God, like that is so stressful. They've already been there for like a year or something.
No, they'll be fine. I'm sure.
Fine.
Did you see I don't know when this was. They put a woman in space and she was only...
Of course they did.
She was... she was only going up for like... Was it like 2 weeks?
I don't know.
And they gave her like 500 tampons.
Oh my God, I did see that. I did see that, yeah.
It's like clearly a man.
They have no conception of like how many tampons a woman would get through. I did see that.
Anyway.
Never be too safe. Living vertically, like will we run out of space that we all have to live in high rises?
It depends where people want to live. So, already in cities.
So like New York.
We build vertically.
Yeah.
Because
there's not enough space.
The population density is very high, right? But like where we live, ain't nobody building vertically. Like
imagine, Facebook community page would be livid. They've built a high rise.
Can you imagine? Right, which like we live on like moorland for the listeners, so they would, that's not going to happen. But like, so they already have, we've only mentioned very, very privileged areas just there. We've only mentioned very privileged areas. So
yeah.
We already have very dangerously highly populated, underdeveloped areas.
I think
in slums. So if you look at like Bangladesh,
I was going to say,
where the population density is incredibly high, but it's not, the water's not clean, the structures are not stable. People live in structures that collapse. Like there's disease. Really awful, really dreadful circumstances. Living conditions. So as our population continues to increase, there will just be more of that. As long as we refuse to help alleviate it, as long as governments refuse to kind of band together and do that sort of thing, we will continue to have like really overly densely populated areas. But I don't think we're going to run out of room. No.
Yeah, because in other countries that don't experience that, like the UK doesn't experience that level of population density, and unlike parts of like Brazil or Bangladesh.
Exactly.
So this is one from the listeners. Back to fossils. And we kind of touched on this, but why do some areas have so many fossils? Someone said, is it a landslide that traps them?
I like this question. I think this is from Elizabeth. This is a really good question.
You're smart, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, really good question. Essentially there are certain environments which really favour fossilisation.
So this is what I was saying about like in certain extreme weather conditions, it's more likely that a fossil will get, or like what I was saying about dinosaur footprints, a dinosaur footprint would get protected. So
exactly.
Like in the UK, if it's just raining sometimes and sunny sometimes, like that wouldn't necessarily happen. Whereas in some places where it's just desert, it would like dry out.
Exactly. Yeah. So basically, the enemy of fossilization is erosion and movement, and oxygen and warmth. So if something dies, right, and RIP to the dinosaur that died, and it's just like lying on the forest floor, it will get broken down. So decomposers will come, essentially. So like bacteria, maggots, the job lot, right? Because it had oxygen, it had warmth, it had moisture.
So there's something for the things to live
exactly and it's the food, isn't it? The dead dinosaur is the food, right? So however, if a dinosaur dies and it's like immediately covered over by mud, i.e. from a landslide, that condition has no oxygen because the mud is, you're underground, it's like encased in mud. no light, no warmth, no oxygen, right? So the decomposers can't act on it, so it becomes fossilized. So yes, you do. It's called a Lagerstätten, which is a German word, which is like lager, like lager.
Like the beer.
Yeah, Statten, which is Statten. So Lagerstätten, which is essentially an environment, what a geologist would use to describe an environment that has preserved incredible fossils. So we have a few of these around the world. If people think of fish fossils, they're probably going to imagine the Solnhofen or the Green River limestone Lagerstättens. So the Solnhofen is in Germany, and this is essentially it's limestone. So it was like a lake bed, essentially, and the lake was too. I think the lake went through like periods of anoxia. So like periods of very low oxygen in the water, which essentially means that like all the fish die because there's no oxygen in the water for them, because they do need oxygen. So the fish will die. They sink to the bottom of the lake. There's no oxygen, right? They get covered over by mud very quickly. They're undisturbed, like nothing is happening to them. Nothing is like churning up that mud, disturbing the scene, right? So you get very, very perfectly preserved fish fossils.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I think of perfectly preserved things, I also think of like the mammoths that have been preserved in like ice, and it's like
cold,
very well preserved.
Cold. So they've been
looking
frozen.
Like what's his? I was gonna say Maurice, but that's from Madagascar. What's he called in Ice Age?
I don't remember. Google it.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Maurice, like the King Julian's side.
Oh, I want to watch
Personal
Madagascar
assistant.
again. Personal assistant. His PA.
His PA.
So yeah, exactly. So woolly mammoths have been preserved in the ice because they've been frozen, and therefore Manny. There we are. Manny the woolly mammoth. He
was preserved.
He wasn't preserved. Other woolly mammoths have been preserved because they've been frozen, right? So they've not been decomposed.
And the ice hasn't melted
all
this time.
Exactly. And now the ice is melting. And
I wish my freezer was that good.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. And it's worked for the last God knows how long. 15,000 years.
Our freezer is pretty old.
Yeah. So there are a few Lagerstätten environments. So lake beds are a Lagerstätten environment. Caves can be Lagerstätten. So you often get like bone caves, which essentially happens because animals live in caves or they go to caves to die.
Yeah.
And then they
just protection from something.
Yeah. Then they just remain undisturbed, basically. So they are protected from the elements. So you get a lot of like Paleogene or like, I don't know, Pleistocene, Paleogene. Like saber-toothed tigers and stuff. In Britain, there are like bear bones and saber-toothed tiger bones and stuff.
Bears?
I think so. Yeah. We used to have bears. They died out. They're only in Europe now, but we used to have bears in the British Isles. Yeah.
They're only in Europe. They have them in America.
No. Yes. I mean, on our continent, they're now only in Europe. I know.
I had a friend who thought that because we're not in the European Union anymore, that we're also not in the continent Europe.
Yeah, a lot of people think that. Yeah. We are, in fact,
still on the continent of Europe.
Yeah, and there ain't nothing we can do about it.
No, we can't leave that.
No. So there's, I've mentioned lake beds. There are caves. Resin is a Lagerstätten. So flies being captured in amber. So you get like perfect preservation of insects
Who would want that?
Tree amber. People, what do you mean who would want that?
Like Hannibal Lecter with his like collection of moths.
No, people collect them. I mean, they're amazing. That is actually how they know things about dinosaur blood, is because there's mosquitoes that have been which is in Jurassic Park, which is actually true. I'm like pretty sure that's actually true.
I don't think I've ever watched Jurassic Park that attentively, except for the dinosaurs.
That's how they get the DNA. Is they've extracted it out of a fly's tummy that was encapsulated
that is pretty gross.
Yeah, I mean it is gross. It is, but that's science, baby. I think there are a few other Lagerstätten environments, but so certain environments are like particularly
good for preservation.
Really good for preservation, exactly. Yeah, they are. That's all right. We're on about.
Someone wanted to ask What's the best way to look after geology samples and specimens for the ones that
Oh, yes. Yeah, somebody's asked. They've been passed down geology specimens from their dad, and they would like to look after them, which is lovely.
That's a very nice thing to care about.
Yeah, really nice, because I think a lot of people would probably throw them away, unfortunately. Which I wouldn't. I mean, obviously I wouldn't, but, you know, it's lovely to want to care for them. So I'd say keep them dry. Make sure they don't get damp. Make sure they're not somewhere that might get mouldy. In Britain, that might be an issue, to be honest, in our houses. But yeah, keep them dry. Keep them out of constant light. So
it doesn't like bleach them?
Exactly. So some crystals, it depends if it's stones or like crystals. Depends what they actually are. But a lot of crystals will bleach in UV light, and also just like generally, I think it will degrade them faster if they're like sat in direct sunlight.
Well, it's not good for anything other than some plants.
Yeah, keep them labelled. If they're labelled currently, keep them labelled, because you will be amazed at how quickly you forget what the hell something is. I'm literally looking at rocks where I'm like, I once knew what that was and I can't remember anymore, and I'm going to have to like go and work it out. So if they're labelled, make sure they stay with their labels, make sure they stay organised in their nice boxes. There are really nice ways to display things like that. So if you're wanting to really look at them and enjoy them, you could turn it into like a thing in your home. Like I intend to have, you know, those coffee tables
that are like glass on the top.
Yes, and then there's a layer underneath. Yeah. You could do something like that with them. You can have them in cabinets or on shelves. Like I have a nice tray on my wall that has lots of rocks in it. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I'd say. Keep them clean, dust free.
Treat them nice.
Yeah. And dry.
Yeah.
There you are.
Lovely.
Well, thank you, Sophie, so much for joining me.
Thank you for teaching me a lot.
Do you feel like you have been taught a lot?
I feel like I've been schooled.
You've been schooled?
Yeah.
Okay. You're looking at me like you're going to forget all of this.
I don't think so.
when you leave my front door.
Yeah, it's all going to flood out. No, I think I've learned lots. So thanks for answering my questions.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you for asking them. Thank you. Right, guys, if you are interested in crystals or crystal geology and you would like to attend one of my workshops, you can visit www.crystalcasestudies.com/events to book onto my live workshops that I do. In these workshops, you will receive a piece of the crystal that we're going to talk about, often more than one crystal. Ooh. And then there's a live workshop involved with it as well, which is super cool. People really enjoy that. So as always, if you have any questions, any requests,
no matter how dumb,
I don't like that word. There is no dumb question.
No, exactly. And I've just proved that to you. So ask away.
Yeah. It can't be worse than what Sophie
Exactly.
If you have any questions, any requests, anything, you can reach me on @crystalcasestudies.com. It has been a pleasure. I'm Emily. I'm a geologist, and I hope to see you again.